Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of the DevConnect show. This is the continuation from our last episode where we had Mohsin Mirza talk about how to build resilient integration. In this episode, he's going to demonstrate how to use Polly and Simmy while building your integration code. So, without further ado, let's see the demonstration from Mohsin Mirza. Yeah, so now I'm excited to actually see it. So
Yeah,
let's do the screen share.
awesome. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me know when you can see it.
Yep, it's loaded
Awesome.
now.
So what I have got here is, so yeah, this is the push part. Okay, so what this application is, this first project is nothing more than just picking up data from a JSON context.json. It has 100,000 contacts, and it's just gonna pick them up, do this JSON thing, and then it's gonna create a batch of 5, array of 5, and then it's gonna serialize and then send them to Azure Storage Queue. Nothing fancy, pretty straightforward. And then I'm just like doing this so that I can replicate some kind of like a relate to a production scenario that you could have like an application pushing into a queue and then some other application downstream pick it up from the queue and then, or Azure function in my case, picking it up from the Azure storage queue and then pushing it to Dynamics. So I'm going to minimize that guy. And this is the upsert contacts. So the first version I have here is without any kind of poly. So this will still run. However, so let me actually start this and let's see if it will fail. And that's exactly the point, that if it doesn't fail, how do we test? How do you do a demo? And then I will show you later on if it doesn't fail for the wait and retry, because API limits hit like in it's a window of 5 minutes, so it's probably not going to hit right away. But let's see. Minimize this guy. So this is the Azure function side. This is the push part to the Azure storage queue. That's picking up the contacts from the Azure storage queue and then pushing it to Dynamics. This version of Azure functions does not have any kind of poly or retry or anything. It's just pure straight in. But let's see if it fails. And if it doesn't, let's give it like 30 seconds or so. And if it doesn't, then we'll probably just go to the next version of it. So you can see it like it comes back, a contact upserted. So it's pushing those data.
Yeah,
And
just
then
to yeah, so the you're pushing the data to Dynamics,
yes.
and because Dynamics has this policies where if you say I don't remember, it's like 10,000 records, right? Something like that.
So there are 3 measures of API limits. One is you cannot do more than 6,000 requests per user per endpoint per web server. The other one is you cannot do or consume more than 20 minutes worth of compute time in a, again, 5-minute window per web server. And then the third one is you cannot have more than 52 threads hitting at the same time in a window of 5 minutes on the same application's web server. So it's important to note that these limits apply per user per endpoint per web server. That is very important to understand, because somebody could just say, well, 6,000 in 5 minutes, that's nothing. Well, no, it depends how many web application servers are allocated or assigned to your Dynamics instance behind the scenes. And that kind of like is driven by the number of licenses you have, number of users you have in the system, your usage, your pattern, all that kind of stuff. But okay, so clearly this is not failing. But what I'm going to show you now, so I'm going to stop this guy. I'm going to keep this left guy running, but I'm going to switch the branch. So this has no poly. So you can see it's straight in, nothing does nothing. It's just key vault being used to pull the secret, spin up your HTTP client, and then for each loop on the contacts coming in, and then we just batch them up and then send them to Dynamics. So nothing fancy. So let me switch to version 2, which is with Polly now. So we add our startup class. So in our startup class, like I mentioned, we have our Polly added package. So Polly extension is HTTP client. So we add that in, and this is how we define our policy. So it's nothing fancy. All it is HTTP policy extensions, and then I'm using hey handle all kind of like transient HTTP headers, and this is going to include your 500 headers, 408 headers, and I'm also saying hey, or if the result is from the response, if it's 429, which is kind of a retry after. So I'm also including that in that hey, if the server tells me hey retry after you do that, I can still say hey dot or exception is a particular exception that I'm expecting, or I want to handle and retry. I could add that in here as well. Okay, so well, this is the handling part. Okay, what I want to do then is wait and retry async. So then this is how you should wait. So retry count. I'm saying here retry 10 times, up to 10 times. Wait and retry. So then I have to provide a sleep duration provider as well. Like how should you sleep? Because there could be responses where I don't have a duration provided to me from the server side. If it just blows up or 500 error. So I need to provide it with a how should it like back off, exponential back off. So I'm using the a helper method, just basically it's going to extract from the response. If there is if or 29 retry after header, it's going to get the value. And if not, then it's just going to do the simple default exponential back off. And then it just returns the retry after. And then this is hey,
So this
on,
this
yeah, go ahead.
so in this particular method, and this is poly, right? This is all poly.
This is the
This is
poly
the this is the
definition.
this is the definition of the retry policy, wait and retry policy using poly, right? Now, in the sleep duration provider, um, is it like required to have a wait duration, or we can just skip it? Is there a default? Is what I'm getting to.
Oh, you mean you just want to say, hey, retry, right? Without the wait and retry. Yeah, I think there's a retry policy as well. So instead of wait and retry, you can just say, hey, retry. But generally, you don't want to just retry right away.
No, but
You
then
want to
no.
always like,
What I meant is you have wait and retry, but then I didn't provide the sleep duration provider. I didn't provide how much time you
I see
have
what
to
you're saying.
sleep,
Okay,
how much time you have to
I,
wait. Is there a default for the wait?
I think you have to provide the wait duration or sleep provider. There could be a definition on the method. I haven't checked, but there could be some where it's defaulting. I don't think so. There is because it is wait and retry, so you kind of like have to provide a wait sleep duration. But it doesn't need to be this fancy. All you need to do is, hey, just take in the retry attempt and then just do the exponential back off and just return that. So you just need to be as simple as that. On the first retry, just wait 1 second, second 2 times, and then third one, yeah, onwards. And then I have the other handler, which is the on retry async, like what needs to happen on the retry. So first of all, I'm just saying, hey, in this case, I'm just displaying it on the console that hey, this is retry from number this 1 or 2, whatever, and the wait duration, how much time did the server tell me to wait for. This is a good place as well to refresh your token as well or reauthorize, because it could be that the token was like 60 minutes, right, valid, and maybe your request failed at 58 minutes, and then you're waiting for 3 minutes. And then when you try to retry, your token has expired now. So you do want to keep that in mind. Hey, you want to refresh your token, reauthorize. So you may want to check, hey, because what's going to happen is it's going to try to retry and it's going to get a 401 unauthorized, right?
So
So you
here
have to
the
like refresh. You got to make sure that you got to refresh your token.
yeah. So here the time span is the time span for the retry. How much time has it been spent for the entire duration, or do you know what that time span is?
So this time span is how much this is going to wait for. So each request is going to come in and wait for. So server, when you make so all of these requests are, I'm using the batch request. So if the server tells me, hey, a request number, whatever, you sent me, wait for 10 seconds, that's so each individual request is going to wait for its own time span. So it's not like one big time span is just going to wait for everybody. No, it's individual requests going to the server. 10 requests went, 5 was like some seconds, 6 requests was some other seconds. 7 was just 1 second. So yeah, they will just wait for their own individual times. Yeah. So then this is just doing the on signal. So far, I haven't done anything. I just defined a policy. It's not going to do anything by itself. I have to use it. So Azure Functions, it's defining a policy registry. It's a dictionary for the policy. It's easier to keep track of things. And then what I'm doing here is building the confidential client application, right? It's just a part of the Microsoft Authentication libraries, using the client ID, client secret stuff. Build that up, acquire the token, and then you add the services builder into the dependency injection policy registry that we just defined up, and then we add the HTTP client, define the org and all that kind of stuff, get the access token. So you see, I just got the access token once. I'm not refreshing it. So this Azure function is actually going to fail after 1 hour. If it tries to wait and retry after 1 hour, it's going to fail. But this is on purpose. This whole example, I have like 3 versions. So one was no poly, second is with poly, and the third one that I'm going to show next is with refresh of the access token. But then this is how you apply your policy handler from the registry. So poly registry. All I have to do is pick it up from my registry, and then it gets automatically applied to this HTTP client.
So what is policy registry here?
Policy registry is just defining your poly policies and then adding them to like a dictionary or policy registry. So it's like a dictionary. So you give it a name, key value pairs. And then you say, hey, I want to apply wait and retry policy, or I want to apply the no op policy. I haven't talked about no op policies, but you have to be mindful of your idempotent requests, right? So you need to make sure you want to retry requests like get, right? Or like delete. You probably don't want to retry requests which change the system state, right? Maybe they have done something, or they executed in a way that they already have modified the system. So thinking in a banking application, your crediting account, right? So it does you retry. Maybe something else is failing downstream, but it's like half the action is already done. Or with Dynamics example, maybe there's an async thing going on, right? So you're triggering an action, you're doing an update contact, and there's a plugin asynchronous, it triggers, but that's actually not the one that is failing. There is some other plugin, or you're triggering a Power Automate flow or Cloudflare. Like there's so many combinations can be done that you want to be really thoughtful. Okay, well, did you even want to retry, or which requests you want to retry actually? So requests where you don't want to retry, you want to use a no-op policy. That's what policy provides, a no-op policy that the request is just going to go through without any kind of like retries and that kind of stuff. So we come down, we just hook up our policy handler, and then that's it. We don't have to do anything else. And then my upstart contacts. This is the Azure function. All that needs to happen is I'm just going to spin up from the HTTP client factory, get your CDS client or the web API client out of it. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, pick up from my queue the contact that are probably getting still upserted, yep, still going. And then that's going to pick it up, do for each on the contacts. Again, it's a batch request. And then it's just going to go ahead and do an HTTP post on it. So posting the batch request. And yeah, so each batch will have 5 contacts sent. So if I run this guy now, this will apply the poly wait and retry policy on it, and then it will retry. I don't think it will fail though. It didn't fail without it. So probably I have more power on the application server side. That is just not gonna retry, but I do have other examples where I can show that it hooks up, and that's kind of like a good segue into Simmy as well, which I'm going to come to next shortly. But yeah, so this guy's running, and it's let's see if it like fails or whatever. In the meantime, while this guy's running, we'll come back to this. I'm going to let it run. I'm going to go and show the third version, which probably I cannot because the project is running. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna actually stop. I'm gonna actually show you the other stuff. I'm gonna show the retry effect with Simmy actually. So that's gonna gonna make more sense. So I'm gonna close it, and then I'm gonna switch to the third branch that I have, which is Polly with wait and retry, but you also get your token authentication going on it. And the way to do that is I have another policy. So this was my original wait and retry, right? Just kept it still the same. And then I have my unauthorized policy. So here I'm saying, hey, handle the HTTP response message when your status code that you're getting is unauthorized, right? And then, hey, wait and retry 3 times. Usually it should be the first time you get a new token, but whatever. I just said, hey, retry 3 times. Maybe Azure AD is struggling or whatever, but here you go. So this is what it is. So I was saying you don't have to have a fancy sleep duration provider. All I'm saying here is it's not even exponential back off. It's just, hey, return attempt 1, 2, 3. So it's going to back off for attempt number 1 second, second attempt 2 seconds, third attempt 3 seconds. And then on retry, I'm just saying, hey, get CDS access token, which is just a confidential client application, right? Get access token. And then here's just setting the authorization, the embedder token again, the new one that I'm just getting from this. And then that's it. And then when it's going to retry outside of this guy, after this guy, it's going to use the latest authorization token. So, okay, I have the policy, but still it's not being used. It's not done, hasn't done anything. So a policy by itself is not done anything. I have to use it. So the way I have done it is probably I have a wrap. And the wrap is probably gonna, I'm using the wrap, which is this guy. Yeah, there you go. So look what I'm doing. So here I'm saying, I explain like a wrap, think of it like an onion layers. So the innermost onion layer is unauthorized policy, okay? Then I have the wait and retry, and then I still have the unauthorized policy. So policies can repeat, yes, that's fine. Unauthorized policy in the innermost layer, because if a request is going in, I want to catch, I don't want to do a wait and retry 10 times. Actually, it's not even going to catch it. But let's say my policies were only this and this. What's going to happen is it's just going to do unauth, but my request is not going to get reprocessed because my wait and retry is already done. So I'm just getting the new token out of it. So what I've done here is I'm saying, hey, pass your request to this guy, your response, and it's going to say, hey, I'm not unauthorized. So it's going to skip all this, and it's going to go to here, 429, that this guy is going to kick in. This is the second layer of the onion. And so it's going to continue to process. But let's say the token expires. So this guy is waiting. Token expires. It goes through the third layer. And then it's going to say, hey, unauthorization policy. It's going to kick it in. And then it's going to get a new token, retry the request. And that's why I have it in both ends. To catch the access token expiration, instead of getting hooked up in your wait and retry, you just get your new token, retry it, upfront, and then you can also retry at the back as well when the retry when your 10 retries have expired. Go back to your if it still expires, you're waiting for like 7th retry and the token expired. It will give an exception on the 8th retry, and then you come back, catch it on the outermost on-auth policy, get your new token, retry it again. And that's kind of what it is. That you have to have a reauth policy.
So if you go back to that wrap function, does it go from left to right, because you were saying left to right, and how does that
Oh,
like?
so this is the innermost. This is what's gonna get when the response comes back. This is what's gonna catch first, second, third.
Right, so it's going right to left. Weird.
Yes, so it's going from here to wait and retry to unauth policy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so then we have unauth policy, nothing fancy going on in here either. So this is gonna get a new token, store, probably I'm storing in the like key vault or something. One other thing I wanted to highlight here before I actually show the policy kicking in with Simmy is your back off policy kind of thing, you can call it. So if you are thinking a high throughput system, you have hundreds of requests going in, and you're getting responses back from the server. There are times, and I've seen in my obviously many implementations and many integration runs and all that kind of stuff, that the server will tell you, hey, back off for 28 seconds, your 10 threads or 10 connections back off for 28 seconds all together at the same time. Well, you don't really want to, yeah, as soon as 28 seconds are done, you don't want to say, hey, 10 connections or requests go back into the server again, hit it again. So you don't want to overwhelm or overload the server again with 28 or 10 requests or hundreds of requests at the same time. What you want to do is you want to back off a little bit. You want to add jitter to them, all of them individually. You want to slightly cascade them that, hey, they're not going all together. You want to like some go like a millisecond after the other. So this is another a function basically from Polly contributors basically that they're saying, hey, give us. So this is I'm saying, hey, from 1 second basically median first retry delay, and I'm saying, hey, I have 10 retry counts. I'm like 10. So there could be at a time I'm using 10 connections, so I want to retry 10. So I'm just getting the delay out of it, and then I'm probably using the delay here. Yeah, there we go. So here I am saying that, hey, the default try coming out, add the jitter delay as well.
Yeah, so if you go back to that delay I thought like it should be one value, but why is it a list?
No, it gives you, so here I asked retry count.
Oh,
So give me
it
like
gives.
10, or like basically a time span array of them.
Oh, okay, I see. So each attempt will have its own jitter delay,
Yeah.
like it could be random or
Yeah.
whatever that logic is.
Yeah, it has a whole scientific methodology to it done, and there was a lot of testing done to it and various approaches, and yeah, it's beyond my skill set. But yeah, they gave this final, hey, use this function one-liner, and then tell it from 1 second till I have like retry tens, and then I'm just saying, hey, this from this array, just I get random numbers for my knowledge anyway.
So instead of using random, uh, this is
Yeah,
what Poly is offering you to provide, because they
yeah,
have already done the research of what those values should be for the retries,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
delays for the retries. So that's why we should be using it and not just using random numbers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And this is battle ready, battle tested by them. They have like full on like GitHub, and lots of contributors have discussed various approaches. This is the one that they recommend, and I'm gonna use it. I am using it. So in this example, instead of even with my default exponential backup, I'm using a delay out of it because your 10 connections could say, or 10 threads requests could say, hey, read and retry, and then you have like retry after of 2 seconds. You don't want to like say, hey, after 2 seconds, go back all 10 connections or threads. Just add a little bit of delay, jitter to it, and then you retry then. That's what's going on in this example. Poly, wait and retry, and re-authentication as well, reauthorization as well in this sample. But what I want to show now is Simmy. So I have this other project, pretty much the same in terms of the wait and retry policy. However, I have some uh, policies against semi policies or monkey policies defined in there. So here I have a socket fault, socket exception, and then I'm saying a monkey policy inject exception asynchronously with the fault of this fault that I just defined as a socket exception, and the injection rate is 5%. So each request 5% of the time will get this exception monkey and will get this exception injected to it, and then yes, it is enabled. So I just define a policy, and then again, like I mentioned with the policy wrap, I can define the innermost guys to be these monkey policies, and then I'm going to say, hey, wait and retry, you're going to be sitting on the outside, you got to be watching these monkey policies. Now, how are they going to throw up your errors and stuff, and then you got to wait and retry. So I'm going to show that in a second, but let me go through this. This one is just saying, hey, internal server error, random, right? Well, not random, but like 5% of the time, it will throw you internal server error, just random. So it doesn't mean that your Dynamics API, by the way, this monkey stuff should only be done in development environment, not production. You
Right.
don't want to have your
Yeah.
production have a chaos in
Right.
there. The whole idea is to make it battle ready, that there is when there is chaos in production, you know that how your application is going to behave, your policies or your resilience policies are going to kick in, and they're going to keep the system
This
alive.
is your integration
Um,
testing, obviously, right?
exactly, yeah. You got to run the stuff, right? So this is just the internal sort of error stuff throwing, and then you can say, hey, swap out the result with this guy and enable it. This one is just, again, a bad result, another result policy. So you want to see how that happens, what happens with that. This is just adding chaos of latency. So you want to add a delay in your request call to Dynamics. How does your system behave, right? You want to add, like I'm saying, hey, add up to like 5 seconds. And then you want to see what happens with that in terms of performance and behavior of the system. Upstream APIs, maybe somebody's calling you, waiting for a response. Are they going to time out upstream, or how is the application downstream going to impact? So you want to see how that behaves. And injection rate is like 10% of time. Each request you want to evaluate and then inject this latency of 5 seconds. So you can see it gives you like lots of levers and things to play with, and then you can like add inject policies. But again, I have another policy, but this is the poly resilience policy from our proactive policy list, because there are reactive policies and there are proactive policies. Reactive one that I just showed you, wait and retry. Proactive one is, if the system downstream is going to take more than 3 seconds, you want a timeout. You want to go back to the client caller. You want to tell, hey, request timeout, retry again, right? You don't want to wait for like forever. So this policy here, I'm defining, hey, timeout after 3 seconds. Okay. I'm just saying it, and I'm optimistic because normally what happens is sometimes the downstream call is already done, right? So the request is already posted, and you have to be careful again what kind of request you're going to time out on, optimistically especially. That your request downstream is there, server is probably processing, it hasn't like failed, it's just taking longer. So you don't want to go back to the client caller that, hey, you're timeout, but do you want to retry? No, you probably don't want to. If you know your system, that your downstream has already been processed, has created a contact or upserted a contact or whatever it has done, it's probably still doing, because it's taking longer. So you want to be mindful of that. How do you want to be optimistic about how much you want to be optimistic, or you want to do a pessimistic one? So you want to be careful with that. A policy wrap for these two guys would be, the monkey one would be innermost, and then the outer side would be timeout. If we're just talking these two guys together, you just want to be, hey, inner side will be monkey injection, and then chaos latency policy, outside would be timeout policy. And then it would just pick it up and apply it. Here I have a fallback policy as well, but this is our wait and retry that I have been showing for I don't know how many times. Yeah. So I'm going to show right now. So here we go. So here I'm defining a wrap, wait and retry policy outside, and then the inner side is chaos equal result policy. So whatever that was up we defined, I'm just using that. And I'm adding it to my policy registry. And then I think I probably somehow zoomed it more. There we go. And then I'm spinning up my HTTP client handler, adding policy handler from registry that I just defined. And then I'm going to just go ahead and run it. So let's see what happens. So same thing, it's doing a contact upsert to Dynamics, but in this case, it's just going to inject a policy, and then wait and retry is going to catch and retry. So the green ones are your good, the requests going through, nice and happy, nothing fails. I'm going to pause right now because you see some reds in there as well. So let me just pause and then
I saw some of them.
There we go.
Yeah.
So you can see error, internal server error. This is a monkey policy error. It's not from Microsoft Dynamics, and you can see the wait and retry caught it and retried it. So it says wait duration 2 seconds, and then probably the green one, next one is that, yeah, you're good. And you can see again, retried attempt number one as well. Yeah, it's just probably some coloring issues, but yeah, so far so good. So it retries and then it just progresses through it. So this is monkey policy creating chaos in the system, and my resilience policy coming in, and then it's hitting it retry. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you also show where the different errors are coming up? Like you had that socket 10031, something like that. No, in the message itself, we should see that, right? In the message itself.
Yeah, so I'm not outputting that message, but yeah, you can grab it from the HTTP response message. You can display that. Yes,
Okay,
that's
so right now
possible.
we
All
right
I'm
now
doing
we
is
won't
just
be able to identify this internal server error was for 400 or for was 500
yeah,
or was for socket exception that you were throwing
yeah,
out.
exactly. Yeah, for now I only have hooked up the socket exception, so it's not gonna actually maybe actually I have the SQL fault internal server error hooked up right now. So it's just grabbing from the and let's see what I have in there. So yeah, I only have the error status code output and then retry time. But yeah, you can see I previously I have like commented it out, but yeah, you can go deep in the exception message result request message, request your path. I was actually taking out the because it's an upsert request. I was taking out the whole ID of the contact ID out of the request, displaying it on the screen. So yeah, you have the full request message, you have the full response message. You can extract whatever message you want to build a custom message out for the screen. You want to do logging, so this is a great place for logging actually to log into a system of your choice. To hey, this is an exception, retry attempt, wait duration, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so this is what monkey policies are, and you can see how quick we were able to like basically go in and run it and test it, make sure that our beta and resilience policy is kicking in, it's retrying it. So yeah, that's what this guy is.
So my question is like, what's your thought on using execute multiple? And can we use execute multiple using this polys policies?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Um, Execute multiple is, look, every implementation is different. And the well, like for example, you're doing uh, system, you have custom entities, you have contact, you have plugins, workflows. You just have to understand the system, and you want to understand how much throughput you can get out of the system if you are going to use execute multiple versus you want to do individual requests in the system. So you have to be really careful in terms of, you have to understand it, the system, the implementation. I have nothing against execute multiple. I use it myself as well, actually. And I'm using it actually the batch of the web API side of things. So $ batch, I'm using that here. I'm using 5 contacts in a batch. I did play with 10, 15, 20, 100. It can go all the way up to 1,000. It used to be 100, but now it updated to 1,000 requests in a batch. And I was running in my like Raspberry Pi Kubernetes cluster, but I'll probably show that some other time. So yeah, I have like all sorts of like metrics. So you want to see how much throughput it gives you, how much individual versus a batch to execute multiple requests. And then you want to based on that, the numbers that you get back, the throughput that you get back, you want to make a decision. Okay, well, do you want to use execute multiple or batch, or do you not want to use them, or you want to just go with the individual requests? Personally speaking, I think you should always, by default, actually, should explore using the execute multiple request or doing a batch request. The reason I say that is, let's take a scenario. So let's say you have a Dynamics 365 instance. You probably have like maybe 2 application servers allocated to it. Sandbox, maybe a single one. Production, let's say default is 2 minimum and more. Now, if you think about it, you have an integration, you want to push maybe 10,000 or hundreds of thousands or millions of records. If you have 2 application servers, you only get the maximum is 6,000 plus 6,000. So you only will be able to push 12,000 individual requests, created requests or update requests, 12,000 requests on 2 application servers. So and you probably are not going to consume the 20 minutes worth of compute time in 5-minute sliding window. So you want to make an educated decision on that. Okay, well, let me try with an execute multiple smaller, shallow batches, not deep, because that's going to eat into the 20-minute compute time limit. So you want to try that out. You want to test. You want to do some test runs. You want to see how that goes. Try with like 10,000 records, and then try to see create requests, and then do the same thing with the individual requests as well, and then see which method gives you the better throughput. In my testing, execute multiple with shallow batches has been a better approach. It's less likely you're going to eat up the 20 minutes worth of compute time unless you have like lots of plugins going on behind the scenes and other stuff. But yeah, shallow batches, and then obviously it all depends on how many application servers you have in the backend. for that endpoint. It depends on the endpoint as well. So you got to be careful web API versus SOAP endpoint. So this is a lot of technical like information. Usually when you're building integrations, or I mean, I come from like on-prem background as well, so I kind of like know how the system works, how the API works, SOAP endpoint works. So somebody who's like maybe 3-4 years of experience, maybe in 5 years of experience, probably won't know like the depth and breadth unless they've been really into it for the past couple of years. So you just have to like, and it also like depends how much sleep you like at night. I love it a lot. I want to sleep. So you got to invest the time. You got to put that in. And that's why kind of like I wanted to share this with you. I did those sessions on XR Merciless. I'll have it in my blog post as well. All these links, the research that I did, how I found these. And I actually, original ones. I wanted all of you guys, whoever comes to the blog post, go to original source. I gave the original sources that I used to understand and gain the knowledge of adding resiliency to the product, to the projects applications, and then obviously these samples are just my own samples. I'll probably push them out to like GitHub sometime if I have time, find time, so others can just probably like take like as a starter example, and then they can like build their own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. This was awesome, by the way. I mean, looking at this, how can you have this? First of all, integration testing was one of the
Yeah.
pain points I've seen throughout like our so many projects that we have built.
Yeah.
No one actually spends time to learn how to do integration testing, and looking, you have implemented it. It was really good. And again, using those poly to create those
Yeah.
policies, and it just like it would improve so much of, like as you said, it would make your integration resilient,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you can have that peaceful sleep at night, which
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you
And,
gotta sleep as well.
yeah,
You gotta enjoy the weekends as
yeah,
well.
and
And
if you don't like sleep, then you can have that time to do something productive, do something for the
exactly.
community, or create some tools, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do so
Exactly. Create
much.
tools. Yeah. Enjoy your life. Do whatever you guys want to do. But yeah. Instead of like doing repeating it over time for different various customers, various integration implementations, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. Let me, before we close, I want to highlight this because people may think I probably don't know, but I know this. If this is getting like too technical for somebody, they have the option to just use the CRM service client by default for Microsoft. By default, the service client uh, for a few versions back now supports default retry, and it does a wait and retry by default. So you can just tell, hey, how many times you want to retry, and then you give a default retry after the wait as well. So if that's just too technical, then yeah, you have that option from the SDK for Microsoft supported version, wait and retry. The new version from Microsoft, the CDS service client or Dataverse service client these days, that also has this baked in now. So all of that will do the wait and retry. Microsoft actually just the latest version they released in alpha, they will do the re-authentication as well. So they kind of like saw that issue that if you wait for too long, they need to like re-auth the client. So they just added their notes that we have updated it to re-auth. Yeah. But yeah, if somebody wants to look at the implementation, please feel free to do so for the CDS or the database service client. I I actually highlighted some issues back in the day, but I'm not a huge fan of it. It's just an opinion, my opinion. It's an opinionated implementation as well. I like more like a generic implementation where you just define a policy and then you just use it whenever you guys want to use it.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's just me how I have
yeah,
implemented
it
it.
just
Yeah,
gives you more control. But yeah, as you said,
it gives you more control. Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, for people who want to build, not invest in Poly or Simi, or try to
yeah.
learn these things,
They have
they
like
can
that.
use CRM service client. Now, one thing I learned recently, and I have been using org service for a while, right? And XM
Mm-hmm.
Toolbox was giving this org service, and I was having this side conversations with the community, and Mark Carrington actually brought this up, is you can clone XRM, sorry, not XRM, the I organization service into CRM service
Mm-hmm.
client. And you can use
Yeah.
CRM service clients, all the method, like, because it's thread safe and our
Yeah.
organization is not thread safe, so you can use that. But you just have to try to cast it, and if the cast fails, then try to use the organization service. But if the cast
Yeah.
succeeds, then you can use CRM service client, which was really good because then I can use CRM service client for all the
Yeah.
threading and all the
Yeah.
nice features that it offers, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it probably like, has a constructor overload to take in the org source and get outside. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Default implementations, if you're new to the platform, to new to the product, this is technical stuff. Start with the CRM service client. Use the Dataverse service client, the new one that is going to hopefully release maybe later this year or something like that. Use those guys. Obviously, .NET Framework only the option for CRM service client, but if you have .NET Core, you may want to go to the Dataverse service client. And in terms of the third-party applications, I mean, I still use like SSIS packages like Kingsmith and all that kind of stuff. Good implementation over there as well with the retry and all that. That's pretty robust, and they will like solid integration migration projects that you can do using those as well. But cases like you have to build a custom implementation, or you already have a custom implementation, you want to add more to it, or you want to build it from scratch, you have Polly and Simmy to take care of that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it was nice seeing Polly and Simi in action,
Yeah,
and it was glad to have you on the show, Mohsin, and take care.
awesome. Thanks, Danish. Talk to you later. Bye.
So, you saw how Mohsin is passionate about integration and how he uses Polly to build resilient integrations and Simi to test those integrations. You can follow Mohsin on social media and website. The link for all of this are provided in video's description below. He has also conducted trainings on 365.training website. The link to those trainings are also provided in the video's description. Don't forget to follow me on social media. Hit that like and subscribe, and see you until the next episode of the DevConnect show.